So, hello everyone. Today we would like to talk about our new website relaunch of the Sitecore Usergroup Germany website based on latest, greatest Content Hub 1 technology. What can you take with you from this session? I would like to start with. So, your expectations at this session, first of all, we have a live website. So it's really built based on a specific technology stack we will show, and you will see a website live and in action. And second, get first-hand experiences, learnings, challenges. As we already heard in the morning and yesterday about Content Hub 1, it's a really cool product. It has its limitations, but it has also its really good sides, and you will learn from us. But first of all, let's a little bit talk about us. So who are we, and maybe also the user group, and then jump into the site. So for everyone who does not know who we are, my name is Christian Hahn. I'm working with Sitecore for around 10 years now, the last 2 years at Sitecore as technical solution architect in sales engineering department. So I have very often talks with customer about products, so it was naturally to also build that and to also play with that.
Yeah, and I'm Katharina Luger. I work at Sitecore as a solution architect in the professional services team. I have around 6 years of experience working with Sitecore products, and I started working at Sitecore a year ago in March last year, so exactly a year ago. And I was with a partner before that, and yeah, I focused on the Content Cloud products, so Content Hub 1 was, of course, an easy choice. And so we weren't alone developing the website. We had some colleagues from the user group joining us. It was Anna Bründel. You maybe know her from the organizer team. She's working at EPAM. And Tobias Demski, he's working for Netzkern, part of Macor. And they both developed the website with us. And
stand up shortly. Wave to the crowd. Right.
And it was a great experience having this interdisciplinary cross-agency setup. And yeah, it was really a lot of fun. So maybe a few things on the German user group. Not sure if you heard of us. So we are a registered association in Germany since 2017. We do have regular meetings like 3 or 4 times a year. We also initiated the Sitecore Launch Europe and the Sitecore Launch Germany. We have 21 members, of which around a third are individual members, like Christian and me, but also a lot of agencies in Germany are members. Over the last few years, we had 46 speakers in 68 different presentations. We made 18 events, 18 official events in 14 different cities, because we are moving all across Germany to get in all the areas where we have members, and yeah, that's on the German user group, or SUGCON, DE standing for Deutschland, so the German short version. And yeah, where did we come from? What was already there? We had a website before. It was based on WordPress. It was built in 2017, of course, and was like that since then. Hosted in a VM with MailChimp as a mailing tool, and that was it. So kind of legacy technology, outdated versions, the editing experience, not sure if everybody of you ever did something with WordPress, but can be a bit difficult. And of course, it's not a Sitecore technology. But yeah, sounds like a solid foundation, right? A few screenshots so you can get an idea of what it looked like. You can see it was built in 2017. Just leave it like that. And yeah, what did we want? State-of-the-art technology and being a Sitecore user group. Maybe a Sitecore tech stack would be nice. So we had the idea of using Next.js because it's amazing, using Vercel because it's great and fast, and those two other words we heard yesterday, I forgot. Vercel. Agile and dynamic, yeah, exactly. You listened. And we also went with Chakra UI because we're all backend developers and we thought it may be a good idea to use a UI framework so it doesn't look that bad. And then the use case was like a one-page application with few updates on the events, but not that much content all the time, and not that complex content. So we thought Content Hub 1 is the perfect product for our use case. It comes with Experience Edge, comes with GraphQL. We can try that all out. We can play with it. Sounds good. Let's do that.
Exactly. So, but before we jump into the website, let's first dig into exactly that topic. And I know there was a presentation yesterday which was great, but maybe not all of you attended that presentation. So just let me highlight again. And as told, I'm in sales engineering, so I have very often the situation to explain to customers what is the difference between our headless CMS and our headless CMS. So, and exactly that's the phase customers very often do, and I can slightly understand them, but a few words on the technology, really high level, so we are all on the same state. We know what we are talking about. So first of all, XM Cloud, it's of course our enterprise-grade content management system based on XM technology, now ported to the SaaS, has of course years over years of experiences with web content management system, and you know that and you feel that when you're working with XM Cloud. And just highlighting some of the key capabilities like content management, and some very special thing that even in a headless context, we have WYSIWYG available with our pages editor, and we have something called embedded personalization and embedded analytics. That's also quite special for XM Cloud. That's this thin slice of CDP and personalized built-in, baked in into our XM Cloud solution. That's on the one hand side. On the other side, Content Hub 1, just as really highlight, it's our lightweight headless CMS. That's already one difference. It's lightweight, you could say entry-level headless CMS because the focus is completely different. It focuses on content collaboration, creation, fast delivery, intuitive using the element, the UI. So it should be fast, intuitive, reliable, and it has no layouting information, as we already heard this morning. So that's definitely not the same product. That's just one thing. It's comparing apples with oranges. It's not the same. It's not the same product. One is based on XM. The other is based on Content Hub technology. And they aim for different use cases and aim for different challenges. And what we are talking about today is, of course, Content Hub 1. Now, just 2 slides of a little bit of sales, and then I will definitely stop. Content Hub 1, flexible content modeling. So I will also go into the back end, and you will see it's really easy to create content elements, content types as blueprints, then maintain them, publish them, and you can create such elements within minutes, and they are available, and you can use them. So it's a really flexible content modeling system. And of course, this idea of an intuitive system, and we will grab that on later on again, that you can really learn fast what Content Hub 1 is, how you deal with that. And of course, it focuses mostly on content reusability in an omni-channel manner, because once content is created and in Edge, it can be grabbed by any kind of application. And when I mean any kind of application, it's really any kind in this case, because we are not using XM Cloud. We have no layout information, so we do not have to deal with something like JSS where front-end developer have to learn maybe some things on top. It's really language and framework agnostic. Nearly every channel can use GraphQL and can read GraphQL. And of course, in a Content Hub 1 world, the layouting is done in the head application purely. We saw some approaches with components, and there we bring in, again, layouting and content modeling. But in a pure Content Hub 1 context, it's really delivering content in an omni-channel world. And Next.js is just one example. I also built some POCs based on Android apps, based on smartphone watches, and so on and so forth. So that's really a huge benefit in using Content Hub 1. Now a slight look at a more technical view on what's available with Content Hub 1. So in the middle is a content repository. And around that we have already heard this morning, but on a nice slide, we have SDK and CLI to interact with Content Hub 1. We have media upload and management API to build anything for content modeling and content creation around. And in the end, we will also see what kind of ideas you could have using that. And of course, on the other side, if you would like to preview content, we have a preview API and a standard Edge delivery API. And in our case, we used the following marked areas. So content repository, we published to Edge and were able to feed our app. And of course, we had also a preview app built, and as mentioned, everything built natively on Vercel. Now our approach, what did we do? We now know which kind of technology stack we have, and now maybe understand how do we deal with Content Hub 1. I had a lucky situation that I already worked with Content Hub 1 and the other composable stack, but for example, our partners, we know to get access is at some point quite difficult, so they started from scratch. They had no idea about Content Hub 1 and they had to come in. So the first question was, what is Content Hub 1 capable of doing for us? So how do we create elements, how do we arrange elements, and so on and so forth. And our approach, as you know, we had a single-page application, and later on you will see that in more detail. It should just highlight how our page is structured. So we get content on a component level. So we really create a component and delivered component to our head application, which means it starts with some kind of hero banner or a hero teaser for events. So we have our event teaser countdown module to promote our next events coming from Content Hub 1. Then pretty standard, a key facts module, meaning it's nothing more like an icon list teaser, again, based on Content Hub 1 data, flexible content model, so easy to create. Same goes for facts module with one difference. There's also some kind of on-top calculation, and let me already tell you like this: if we face some limitations, as we heard today in the morning, there could be limitations in GraphQL or what kind of elements you have. And we were easily able to overcome these with some kind of TypeScript or some kind of business logic on top. So it was really no problem to do all of that. Then next module, newsletter module. That's one with some front-end integration, quite easy, quite simple. And the last one, the document download module. Again, one limitation, we are not able to save PDFs in Content Hub 1, so we are saving it on Edge, getting the link, and the link is stored in Content Hub 1. As soon as it's possible to store also PDFs, we are happy to rebuild that to use latest feature updates. And last but not least, Twitter feed. So Twitter feed is special. It has nothing to do with Content Hub 1. It's just interacting with Twitter, because social media is nice on a user group website. Now, let's also have a look into the components. How do they look like on the side, but also on the back end? On the back end, our most complex module or type of component is an event. Everything is around an event. Event can have title, text, description. It has an address, coordinates to display nicely on a map. But it has also references to agendas, and an agenda can have multiple slots, and slots can have multiple speakers. And we will see that later on, how that goes on. But you can already imagine that we can not only build very easy models, but also quite complex models. And now, delivering that to the front end is, as mentioned, nothing more like GraphQL. So when you know the GraphQL query, when you have the data model, it's easy to display everything. And again, we will see that later on in a little bit more detail. For that example with events, there was, again, some kind of TypeScript needed on top, because with this query, we just get all the events. And on top, we just filtered for future events, took the first one, and that was the data source. So there are, I would say, not restrictions, some limitations in GraphQL, which make it currently a little bit harder to get the exact information, for example, for that use case. But as mentioned, it was easy to just do that on top. And it doesn't matter because everything is statically generated. So if a query runs 1 or 1.5 seconds for us, for our use case, it didn't really matter. The second, the key fact module, is not that complex, but it shows this reference, this idea of having references. Again, we have the title and text or description. We have then multiple of these icon teaser or icon text teaser elements. And the GraphQL query is slightly more complicated, which means we're grabbing an element. And you see, again, we're grabbing a specific element with ID. You could also do that approach like we saw it in the morning, having some kind of homepage or landing page and building those components in. We simply decided currently to have just the components and deliver them to the front end via ID and having the ID more or less static for our approach. But if you do not like that, then you have one layer of abstraction in front of that, like having a homepage template with all the elements on that. And the last thing you see is depending on the type of the reference, we can also tell GraphQL what kind of data should be loaded. And exactly that's what we are doing at that point. And the last one, the download module, is again a little bit more complicated. We have again our query, some node. We have a single line text for URLs because we store them on the cell. And the query is more or less the same, just we have one image. And you see an example how to query an image from Experience Edge to display it on the website. But again, it's more or less the same approach. You see on the right-hand side the model, the references, the GraphQL query, and then the head application output. And based on that, you could say there's a web path following content or component creation. And that's just one thing we would like to share with you, our approach, how we created components. So each component was more or less created exactly after those steps. So the first step was creating a content type. So you go into Content Hub 1, create the content type, the blueprint of your elements, and you're totally free of using the available field types like single line text, rich text, number, references, all that. And of course, when I go now through those bullets, I assume now they are done sequentially, but of course they can also be done in parallel. Like the marketer can create already everything in Content Hub 1. The front-end developer can already create the component. And you could say the contract is then the GraphQL interface, the GraphQL output, and that can be done and arranged later on. Second thing is, we also created then, of course, based on the blueprint, our content element. And sorry that it's German. One limitation, we have no multilingual capabilities, so we build in everything in German. You can later on see on the webpage, you can translate it via Google Translate. And as soon as translation is there, we will luckily add a language switcher on top of that, just seeing that everything is in German. So creating content elements, we simply created one element or multiple elements, could also be test element. At that point, we were in the process of creating the component in the backend. Then, easiest was, after the component was created, go to the playground. In this case, it's a preview API. You see that in the URL. We have an API key, and luckily it's not visible completely, so it's completely useless. We do not change it afterwards, or maybe we do, we see. It's a preview API. You can grab the content and see on the right-hand side the output. So you can play around with a query to see when do I get all the content I need, is everything right, and play around like this playground mentioned. One highlight on one thing you see, we have an rich text editor field. And Content Hub 1 deals a little bit different with rich text than, for example, XML Cloud does or JSS does. So in Content Hub 1, you see that the rich text itself, the content of the rich text itself, is structured JSON. So it's not this whole markup built in one field, which then is outputted to the front end. So it's structured JSON. So I know, we had some discussion, other CMS, headless CMS systems do it the same way. And the only thing, so it's really nice approach to do it like this, because you have the total freedom of how to render that in the front end. The only disadvantage is you need some kind of framework who understands exactly that. And luckily, I don't know who is, but Sebastian wrote something. Again, for the starter template, it's based on TipTap. So we were able to use that TipTap library, and which was really easily able to be integrated. And then we were able to also display rich text fields quite nicely. Then next step, once Playground is totally done, we had the approach that we have this copy over. So really, it's a copy and paste of the query from Playground to our next application. And this can be done in various ways. We have simply the query in here with the needed parameters. And of course, what we did in advance was creating a GraphQL client. Very simple, very easy GraphQL client, which can be reused all the time. That's the client. And you see the query. And below the query is the fetch GraphQL. That's simply calling the client with a query. Has all the needed information, all the needed API keys, endpoint, all that. And after that is done, we decided to not work with anonymous JSON, but we simply strongly type everything so we are able to properly use it. So as we mentioned, we are a backend developer. We love strongly typed models. So we strongly type, so it's easy to use later on. Then, as mentioned, we are using static site generation. And you see, I would say one disadvantage of having everything as component is that this one gets bigger and bigger the more components are there. That would be nice when we then have one function, get homepage, and there's everything in. But that also works totally fine. It's simply calling the content hub one, getting all the elements, and then pushing those elements on this get static props property, which does all the static site generation. So the whole page is built on, or it's generated, the whole markup's generated on build time. And last but not least, the component. So once we have everything, we put it into our component. And as you can see, it's a Chakra UI-based component, which makes it really easy to, especially for us backend developer, to style components. And I know there's a philosophical war, Tailwind versus Chakra, maybe versus other libraries. So it's up to you what you would like to use, or if you would like to use a framework. But all these steps, I would say these 7 steps from content type creation till we have now a module, I don't know, takes around an hour, and we create a simple component, maybe a little bit more when it's more complex component. But it should demonstrate it's really not rocket science. It's easy to go through the steps, and it's easy to build your own component in an easy way. Every front-end developer can do that, and every marketer can go into the system and add some stuff. So there you see this intuitive handling of everything, this very easy handling. Now, we saw the approach. We would also like to go on the website. Now we let the screen open for a few seconds. So if you would like, you can scan the code, you come to the website, you can browse through. But I will also, in a second, show you the website. And I don't want to overpromise. It's a simple single-page application with some nice modules. It's responsive. It has everything it needs. So that's how it is. Great. So we already see the site in action. And luckily, we have also internet. In a SaaS-based world, we really need internet. So we have the user group website. And let me simply reload it. And as you can see, it's really fast because it was pre-built, pre-generated. We have a next event. So because of that, we have this event teaser in Frankfurt on the 11th of May. I can also click on that to get the event details. And yeah, the event details are not really there because it's a while till this event happens. So our agenda is empty. So in preparation, I took also the event page of our last event. and which is quite nice. It looks nice. You see all the information needed. Every piece of information comes from Content Hub 1 and is assembled in the front end. Like I mentioned, the event with basic information, then the description, the agenda with all the detailed information, what kind of single steps we have, speakers of the agenda, all that. So as mentioned, pretty easy, pretty simple. Going back and scrolling just a little bit down, you see the key stats, you see the numbers which are counting nicely up, but are, again, pre-generated. We are grabbing the content once, and once something changes, most likely if we have a new event, which is then done, these numbers are automatically updated because we are grabbing content from Content Hub 1, and of course revalidating after some time, so the numbers also update. Yeah, just going down. Oh, you see our Twitter feed also has a newest Twitter photo from the beginning of the presentation. So all that is available in here and can be seen. So that's our pretty simple, pretty intuitive to use website. Now let me also have a look into the backend, Content Hub 1. Just a rough overview, because as mentioned, it's a simple website. So when I go to content types, you see we only have a few content types. So like the event has an agenda, has a session, and session has agenda slot. So you see we really do not have that many elements. Yeah, 12. That's right. And let me scroll down a little bit. I can open also one. You see it's, again, pretty simple. We could also add new fields, and these are the available field types. So a marketer can easily go in, change things, create new types, and just save and publish all that. That's everything I could also, in addition, show you in Content Hub 1. Let me also shortly show you the playground. Open this query. So to show you, it's this preview API with a specific element. And on the right-hand side, we see the output. I screenshot it in advance. And imagine something changes on the data model. You can easily adapt that GraphQL query to tell the system what kind of information do we want to have. That's the beauty on GraphQL, right? Every system understands GraphQL, and you can easily build all these queries, test them, and then bring them to your head application. Last but not least, maybe a new part, I would also like to show you the Vercel piece. So we have a simple pro account for our user group, which is totally sufficient enough. We never had so many visitors on the website like today. So it's really, you can see it as a playground, or we see it as a playground. We really tested everything, tried out, gave feedback to the product team, which was well received. So it's really some easy to use case, which we were able to also not only have the front end part, but also the Content Hub 1 part, also the Vercel part, hosting. For me especially, I did that hosting part, and it was nice to do that for a real project, to take care of everything, talk to the previous host and so on, but Vercel made it really easy. So it was just a few clicks. Let me show you the settings. And on the settings, I will just show you one thing, environment variables, which is quite easy. You see all the needed environment variables. I will not unfold and open that because there are some API keys in. But you see we split it among production, preview, and development. So we are able to have a Vercel account, and we can deliver the preview. We have a dev environment, a dev page, a preview page, and a production page, all with different URLs, like pointing to the CM, not CM server, it's not XM, pointing to Content Hub 1, pointing to the edge, and that I can show you, different revalidate parameter. As you know, static site generation, one thing is we have these revalidate parameters, which tell the system, okay, once this has been done, so after X seconds or minutes or whatever, the next request then triggers the revalidation and it builds everything. And as you can see, we simply differentiate. On the live side, we do not really need that very often, but on a dev or staging or preview environment, we would like to see changes very often. But as you can see, easy to use, easy to set up. And in addition, just showing you the domain settings, because we have quite a few domains. So as mentioned, starts with a preview URL pointing to the preview branch, because Vercel has really that nice GitHub integration. And going now down, we have some kind of redirect. The old hoster told us it was easy. Vercel told me exactly the steps I need to do. I said new DNS entry, and they told me, okay, go to your hoster and ask him this. I asked him 5 minutes later, Vercel was fine and said, your hoster did right. So it was really like that going down, and it works. And you see it refreshes every, I guess, minute or two. So it was really that easy to build that hosting part on Vercel. Now going back to the presentation.
Yeah, and coming back to the learnings and challenges we had, maybe the most interesting part as well for the product team. And it was also really amazing for us as a team of us four working together. We had some general project learnings as well, so not only related to Content Hub 1, but also on the general project setup. And I want to tell you, so you maybe won't fall into those pitfalls. So it's important to be clear on a design before you start, and define some kind of global stylings before everybody is running ahead and doing stuff. Also standardize your dev setup. Set up a linter. It's better you do that before than afterwards. Have a ticketing system, and also keep it up to date. I guess that's everybody kind of knows that, but a lot of times it makes sense to just repeat it again and again. And what we also learned that can be challenging if you have a really simple project and there are a lot of people involved, because communication gets really hard because the project is so simple and everybody thinks like, oh, I'm just doing that because it doesn't matter, and I'm just doing that, and we were all really experienced developers, and yeah, communication was hard. Let's leave it at that. Then onto the product learnings. So it was the first time for Anna and Toby to see Content Hub 1. It was the first time for us to really have a productive project with Content Hub 1. And what we found, so it is really fast. So Christian showed you how you can create a component. It's really fast. You get access to the product, you make a content type, you put in content, make a GraphQL query, and you have it. And it's just really fast. The implementation is also really simple. If you know a bit of GraphQL and you know any kind of technology that can consume GraphQL, you're good. And the usability in the backend is also really amazing. It's really intuitive, and you know where to click, what to do. It's really clean. So that's really, that was a great experience. However, of course, it's a new product. It was launched a few months ago, so there weren't all the features available that we would have used or would have needed or wanted to have. But we had some really great talks with product, with Eski and Hande, and we gave them all our feedback, and we also got some feedback back. Let me share that with you. So one of the challenges was defining the content model, which is not an issue of Content Hub 1, but an issue on our side. So it's like a learning curve, and we will get there. We were all used to using XP, creating items, creating renderings. You know it. It's different with Content Hub 1, so we needed to learn how to think in the Content Hub way. When we started, I think it was 3 months ago or something, not all of the documentation was there yet, so we had some missing parts, but I think right now everything's up to date for everything that's released. I hope so, but it should be. And then some of the other things were authoring flow wasn't that flowy all the time. So the clicking process was not that optimal. I'm not sure if you were at ESCI session today, but they also saw in their Content Hub Oneception implementation or usage that they also found some things not that great for the authoring flow, but they are working on it. So one big thing was like publishing multiple items at once, or having the ability to create a new item when you reference it. So you always need to go into the create a new item or create a new content, and then go back to your first content and then reference it. So that were like, I think the two most annoying parts. Yeah, and
maybe click next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine.
Everything we had as a feedback was put on the roadmap, so it's really great. And last but not least, just to mention, it was an MVP that went live with focus on the most important features. Speed and usability were high priority. That was really great, and we can definitely say that it was like that. And the team is really responsive to feedback. And I guess every product team is, so if you have any feedback, please tell us. And yeah, I will skip the next steps because we need to come to an end. And yeah, I'm not sure if we have like 2 minutes of questions, if there are any.